And welcome to the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. Along with former Newman Catholic High School head basketball coach Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Coming up tonight, we have a pair of guests, our coach guests for this week. At 6:20, we'll be talking to DC Everest boys basketball coach Oliver Drake. And then at 7 o'clock, it's our student-athlete guest. And we're going to test Jeff Gress tonight because family, and we're going to have family. And it wasn't Jeff that invited him. Nope. I invited Isaac Roswadowski. I just want to see how Jeff Gress handles this.
I can handle it.
Okay,
I'm prepared.
Very good. But Isaac Roswadowski, one of the seniors on the Wausau East boys basketball team, and he'll be joining us at 7 o'clock. So, and also coming up a little bit later in the program, got some brackets to talk about because the hockey brackets are out as the playoffs begin in ice hockey next week, followed by girls basketball and then boys basketball. And I was looking at some of these basketball teams. They played more than some of these teams have played more than 20 games.
Yeah,
it shows we're right at the end of the season.
Yeah, when you're looking down the schedules, 2 games are left. It's such a bittersweet time because you're waiting for that excitement of the postseason, but at the same time, it's winding down, and before you know it, it'll be gone again.
Let's jump right in. Boys high school basketball, what's been going on? Starting with the Wisconsin Valley Conference, Marshfield currently leads at 9-0. Tigers are 18-2 overall. Likewise at 18-2 and 2 overall, Stevens Point. Panthers are those 6-2 in the conference. Wausau East is third in the league at 6-3, 14-5 overall. Wausau West fourth at 5-4, 13-6 overall. Wisconsin Rapids is 2-6 in the league, 6-13 overall. DC Everest 2-7 in conference, 7-13 overall, and Merrill 0-8 in conference, 7-12 overall. When you look at the action from the past week, perhaps the biggest game was on Friday night at Wausau East. Marshfield defeated East by a score of 65-63. Chris Pohl, 28 points. Brooks Hinson, 20, including the game winner at the buzzer. Jesse Knapp-Gezik and Charlie Cayley at 15. Caden Worth and Jaden Garrett, 11 for East. Were you there? Did you see that game?
I did. It was one filled with. It was a good basketball game. Obviously, Marshfield came out on top, but a couple times when Marshfield tried to separate, East came roaring back and got it to the pivotal point where they're trading some blows down the stretch. The shot he hit, there's so many questions about that last shot in terms of what could have been called, what couldn't have in terms of violations. I got my view blocked a little bit, so I don't even want to take an opinion on it. But, as Hinson gathered the ball, he was able to push it in. And unfortunately, East didn't get a good look at the end. But it was a good high school basketball game. And one of those ones where they're tough on both sides because, one comes out and wants to command it and own the top of the conference. And Marshfield beat East significantly last time, but for East, to keep coming back a couple times in that game was good. And you want to get over the hump, and it's a tough one to lose, especially when you can go back and look at any little mistake. But overall, good high school basketball game by 2 teams that are doing a good job in the Valley.
Marshfield had a significant win streak come to an end last night. Non-conference game went to Eau Claire North, fell in overtime, 71-69. Chris Pohl 20, Brooks Hinson 19, Ethan Connect 12. Stevens Point, a couple of W's. They defeated DC Everest 59-46 on Friday. Amon Konopaki 19, Grant Shadana 12, Cohen Preby at 12, Casey Studeman 10 for the Evergreens. And they went up to Rhinelander and won 69-54 last night. In fact, it was a much bigger lead at halftime. They came up to Rhinelander and were able to really take charge early and then cruise to the victory. So Stevens Point looking like, again, very solid.
Exactly, and I'll jumping back to the Marshfield game. I was able to catch the tail end of that overtime game, and some tough shots that didn't roll in down the stretch, and it went back and forth. And give Eau Claire North credit. I think they were 9-9, and they just kept playing with them. They answered every time they got fouled. They answered every time they needed a basket. And some things didn't fall for Marshfield and came out on the short end of that one. For Spash, another win in the conference versus Everest and going up to Rhinelander, which is never an easy place to play with that tight gym. Unfortunately, they're going to need a little help to get that extra loss out of Marshfield somewhere, but they do have them coming up early next week. So still rolling. 18-2 mark is a great record at this point in the season.
Wausau West had one game, and they were very impressive. I did the game on Friday here on Bull Falls Radio. Warriors offensively as effective as I've seen them. I mean, really a really effective night, a very efficient night. Wausau West defeated Wisconsin Rapids 87-68. Griffin Lang, 23 points. Brett Butala, 21. Lucas Hager, 14. Sean Reynes at 25. Traden Clary, 20 for Rapids. And the thing about it was, Rapids, I thought, played pretty solid offensively. They had both Reynes and Clary put up big numbers. They were 15 of 15 at the free throw line. But Wausau West scoring 51 points in the second half. Not used to seeing that. And again, it shows when Lang is in there, I think he really is that spark plug because everybody plays better when he's around. And then he added the offensive point total, especially in that second half on Friday. I think, again, I'm talking about early next week and even tomorrow. I'm very curious to see this West Everest game. I think it's going to be a very good one. But then East and West, after East had beat West by 38 points the first time without Griffin Lang, I was very impressed with what I saw from West on Friday.
Well, I think when we talk about teams over the years, and we bring up West, it's always there's the defensive consistency that they seem to always have. They rise to the occasion against those teams, and they're going to be gritty and physical. So you mix in when they can get those solid offensive output nights and can shoot the ball well and things are rolling. You see it. That's a lot of offense. West isn't typically knocking up in the 80s all the time or high 80s like that. So you good for them. I love when this crosstown rivalry that you can have because Everest, West, East, all in the same conference, all close, and you got all they're playing each other in the next couple games. I think it's going to be interesting. It makes for a neat mix because they're all hanging around. They're hanging in the middle of the pack in that conference, some of them. So it'll be interesting to see if anybody can jockey for a little position based on a win. And the beauty of seeing a team the second time, if you did well the first time, you want to continue that through in the next game. And if you didn't, you want to continue to improve on some things and show that your team has made us something a little different the second time around.
Rapids very good offensively, but right now struggling defensively. They came right back on Saturday, had a non-conference game and fell to Franklin, 85-83. Traden Clary, 24. Reynes and Brody Gilbertson, 22. They're a fun team to watch, but they got to give up a fewer points right now. I mean, they're scoring enough to win, I think, but boy, the defense right now is leaking a bit.
Yeah, and you got to have that consistency on both sides of the ball, or to make, I think, the best balanced offensive and defensive attack usually per team pulls that game out. And when you're giving up too many points defensively, it'll show up in the record. They're 6-13 currently, and just never seem to have enough stoppage on that offensive end when they're playing other teams.
And besides the game against Marshfield, we talked about East had a couple of other games. Right, they had a trip down to Madison Saturday, fell to Madison Memorial, 61-58. Charlie Cayley, 20. Jesse Napgezik and Caden Worth, 13 each. Then they came back on Monday, another quick turnaround makeup game against Merrill, one up in Merrill, 70-62. It was I listened to the game actually, and it was a choppy game. There was a lot of fouls, and there was a few upset folks around there. But Jaden Garrett, 25 points. I think that may have been his season high, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. Napgezik had 16. EJ Wykes had a monster game for Merrill with 35 points. And for East, again, they just we're going to get more about the Lumberjacks when we talk to Isaac Roswadowski. But again, right now, 14-5, 6-3. And, of course, one thing that's a little different for them and Merrill is their Division II.
Yeah, it's. I think it's a nice mixture. Like, that's what I liked when I coached at Newman. We'd play a lot of D4 teams, and we'd end up in D5 for the playoffs. And I think it just builds this rigidness, this toughness, this physicality that gets you ready for the postseason. And for East, you can't frown on the Marshfield game. I mean, that's a tough battle. They played them hard. They did much better than the first time. So that's the improvement you want to see as players and coaches. And then I think it bugs you a little bit that you came up on the short end, so you go after it. And those are tough bounce back games. You're on the road. You got to go back down to Madison after a hard fought game the night before. You got to get up and go. And they were actually, they were leading and they were up for a while. And obviously things went back and forth a little bit and came up on the short end, but then you turn around and you got another game right away in conference, makeup game. Mondays are sometimes to come off, not a lot of rest. What did they, how much did they, you went back to practice probably on Sunday, so to get a nice bounce back road win, conference win against Merrill's Monday is solid for them.
And for Merrill, they had to bounce back on Tuesday, and apparently the legs were not quite there, or DC Everest played outstanding basketball. We'll find out in a few minutes, but the Evergreens went up to Merrill and defeated Merrill 62-31. Cade Felch, 18, Casey Studeman, 11, Cohen Preby, 10. And not just because the coach is sitting in the other room. This Everest team, I mean, again, they played Stevens Point to a 4-point game. They got very unfortunate against Wausau East. And they got these kids that are very capable of putting in the hole. Again, I think DC Everest is a team that still can come up and bite somebody as we head towards the end of the regular season and even into the postseason.
Yeah, and they're not upperclassmen. They're not heavy in the upperclassmen. So they got some of the guys that are doing a lot of the things on the floor for them are younger guys, and I think you build off that. And if you can,
I said Spash. I meant Marshfield. They had a 4-point game,
and
I don't want to hang a mistake out there.
I hear. Either way, I didn't know if you were right or wrong.
Well, I was hoping for you to correct me after I opened my mouth.
Sorry, you're good on that.
All right.
Anyways, with Everest, I think just the competition level that makes them dangerous. They're true competitors. They come at you no matter whether the competition level is difficult. They're playing in or out of conference. They're always hanging around. And those type of teams that fight with that grit and determination, I think. Those are the teams that are really dangerous, not only down the stretch when you're playing those conference games, but also the teams that, they go out and take something they maybe weren't supposed to get right away on paper in the postseason. So for Everest, I think, set aside the record, I think they're a team that you don't want to overlook and a team that you want to look past.
Great Northern Conference, quite a battle at the top in the GNC. It's felt like Mosinee has been sort of the team at the top all season long, but it's still very competitive as Mosinee 8-1 in the conference, 16-3 overall. Medford and Rhinelander are both 7-2. Medford back-to-back conference wins against Mosinee and Rhinelander put themselves right back in it. Medford just 9-9 in overall. Rhinelander 11-9. Lakeland 7-3 in the conference, still right there, 11-7 overall. Then Antigo and Northern Pines, both 2-8 in the conference. Tomahawk 0-9 last Thursday, a big one. And Medford earned a tough one, 57-55 over Rhinelander. Massive game for Medford. Tough loss for Rhinelander because they could have been tied for first with Mosinee.
Right.
Tanner Robbie had 36 of the 57 in that game for Medford. He's the one link between some of these outstanding Medford teams we've seen the last couple of years and really step up right like that in a big game to get 36 points against Rhinelander. Very, very impressive. Probably one of the best performances in high school boys basketball in the area in the past week.
Yeah, that's a lot of points on one player, and especially as your team, inputs up 57, that's probably needed offense, much needed offense that night. But for Medford, they're sitting in a good spot in the Great Northern. I mean, everybody's just, they're a game behind with a rough start. It shows with that 9-9 mark overall, and out of the 9 wins, 7 of them are in the conference, that they're really make the most of their conference schedule, their conference time, and it shows probably how tough their non-conference schedule is. But, at this point, I think with a lot of teams, you want your team to go out there and execute and run things well, but sometimes you're just going to take the win. I mean, that's what you want. You want it for playoffs. You want it for everything. And Medford squeaks out a tight one against Rhinelander when they need to. Turn around, pop back, got one against Antigo right away again, and again find themselves sitting at a spot that's dangerous. Mosinee, I still think with the depth of that roster, they've been in control, and I don't think they're going to relinquish that top spot easily. They have a couple of games that they just beat Northland Pines, and they've got a couple other games that are going to give them a couple more wins against teams that are in the lower half of that conference, and they're going to jump out again and challenge themselves with some tougher non-conference games. But I just think Mosinee's depth is going to be a problem if they have to face any of those other teams down the stretch that are trying to jump up on the top.
What about Rhinelander? I find it interesting because, again, they're 7-2 in the conference, 11-9 overall. They've had some bumps. They face a really good schedule. I mean, they face a lot of Wisconsin Valley Conference teams. They faced Oshkosh West Saturday, lost 52-50. They lost last night to a really good Stevens Point team. How do you look at that? Where it just feels like they kind of got, I don't know. It just feels like they're getting wore down a little bit by some of these games, and there's a real delicate balance when it comes to scheduling, isn't there?
Yeah, I think. I don't know. I think you got to obviously non-conference schedule. You got to push and challenge your kids. Between the coaches know their rosters and the kids they've got coming up, the kids that they've got currently in their program. And I think that's the feel they get when they try to schedule. And there's different ways to look at it. Sometimes things can wear you down a little bit, but I just think at the end of the day, the coaches know what the kids need to get the most out of them, which is really, to drive yourself in the conference at the end of the day, and then, to make that postseason run as lucrative as possible and as successful as possible. They're not. The Spash team obviously challenged themselves. You said the score was a little bit wider than it was indicated at the end with those 15 points. Tight one against Oshkosh West. I don't think that's bad challenging yourself, especially on a weekend, to get some used to a little bit of a playoff run.
I think that was probably a makeup from the Century Classic. That game was played at UWSP, and I remember that we had some weather issues during that time.
Gotcha.
So I think that may have just been moved to get that game back in Stevens Point.
So I don't know if I really answered your question.
There's not an answer to it.
But I
mean,
think
it really
that
isn't.
the coaches know their players best, and if they're heavily involved in the schedule and want to put their team and their players in the best spot, they kind of dive in there and get their hands dirty and try to figure it out. So a number of ways to look at it. I don't think
I just sometimes
it's going to hurt you.
Yeah, but sometimes there is a confidence factor for high school athletes. I just think that sometimes you don't want to go, against it. Play the best competition, and obviously as a Division II team, they're thinking, well, we'll play these Division I schools, and if we get the W's, it obviously helps with the computer. And if you lose, it helps with finding out where your weaknesses are. But at the same time, you don't want to go through it where you're losing all these games either.
Yeah, and they have Shawano coming up again, which is another typically battle competitive program. So I guess we'll have to wait and see and find out. I mean, they're holding their own and sitting well with conference, so whatever they're doing in their non-conference is obviously paying off to get them stronger in their conference season.
Merriwood South Marathon 12-0 overall, 18-1 overall. Auburndale 11-1 overall, 16-2. 11-1 conference, 16-2. Edgar 9-3 in the conference, 15-4. Stratford 8-4, 15-5. Assumption 5-7, 8-10. Newman 1-11, 3-16. A lot of crossover games. There were not any conference games between these teams in the past week. Marathon continues to roll, 83-70, a good non-conference win last Thursday over Pacelli. Grant Warren, 26. Cooper Huxtama, 18. Tyler Underwood, 12. Then Friday, rolled past Abbotsford, 92-47. Grant Warren, 30 points, 17 boards. Maybe I'm going to look like an idiot by saying this, but often we see these really great records in the Merriwood South, and then, sometimes you'll see a team win twice in the regular season, get knocked off in the playoffs. I sense a gap right now between Marathon and these other teams. I mean, you look at Stratford. They were down 10 at halftime at home to Chequamegon. They almost lost that game. They came back, won 46-43. Auburndale is a really solid team. They're 16-2. But I still sense there is a gap right now. Marathon is that good.
Yeah, well, if you go on, you look at the scores on paper. Marathon, the last time they played Auburndale, owned them, held it. They have a fairly, they got a balanced lineup. You got the big in the middle. You got guards, two guards, senior guards. One that's a point guard, that's the floor general, handles the ball real well. You got the other off guard.
Underwood,
Huxtama. Underwood was the one I was looking for. He can score in bundles too, and then they got the balance of the youth that fills out their starting line with two sophomores and guys off the bench that just keep rolling. It's a disciplined program. They know where their guys stand. They're focused. They're determined. When we've had guests on, Warren was on. He just knew where to answer the question and where to go. That means these guys are thinking about it. So obviously the court sense, the court intelligence is there too. So I agree with you 100%. I think there's a gap. There's always that one little moment though, because these teams go to wail on each other in the playoffs, and it comes down to the old adage: it's hard to beat a team three times because that's usually what happens. And nerves can set in. A mistake can be made that might not. So there's all kinds of different factors, but. Conference-wise, I just think Marathon's going to be tough to beat, and I still think in the playoffs they're going to be ready to go. They're going to ride the shoulders of those little seniors.
We're going to stop here. We'll get back to the Merriwood North, the CWC East. I think the Merriwood North are willing to wait because they got swept in those crossovers.
Yep. And
obviously the South, again, very solid. But we'll talk more about that a little bit later in the program. Again, our student-athlete guest coming up at 7 o'clock, Isaac Rosbadowski. But coming up next will be our coach guest from the DC Everest Evergreens. We'll talk to Oliver Drake coming up. This is the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. On Friday night, the Central Wisconsin Storm girls hockey team plays host to the Bay Area Ice Bears in the penultimate game of the regular season. Hear all the exciting action live on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app, starting with the pregame show at 6:50 and the opening face-off at 7 p.m. Central Wisconsin Storm Hockey on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230 is brought to you by the Cloverbell Credit Union, Red Robin Restaurant, Sun Printing, Graphic Packaging International, the Wausau West Athletic Department, Menke Automotive, Shine Chiropractic, and Picks and Pieces. It's the Central Wisconsin Storm hosting the Bay Area Ice Bears Friday night. 6:50 pregame, 7 o'clock face-off on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Parents of class of 2024 seniors, graduation is a few months away. Do you know where your photos are? Melissa Sullivan of Picks and Pieces Photo and Digital Organizing can help. Mel is a professionally trained photo manager who can convert printed photos and outdated media to digital formats, consolidate and organize your digital photo collection, and create custom photo books, gifts, and slideshows. Preserve, organize, and share your priceless family memories today. Call Mel at 715-446-0762 or visit picksandpieces.com today to learn more. Again, that's PIX, the letter N, pieces.com.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in Wisconsin. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. With Jeff Grest, I'm Chad Holmes. Very happy to welcome into studio the head boys basketball coach of DC Everest Senior High School, Oliver Drake. And Coach, last year we talked on the phone. It's great to have you here in studio.
Yeah, this is a beautiful place. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, second year. And very different from a year ago because, again, we were just talking off the air. You had yourself not just a good basketball player. You had one of the best basketball players not only in the area but in the state. And this year, a much younger team and new roles. What has the transition been like for your group here in the 2023-24 season?
Yeah, I think anytime you lose a player like Marcus Hall, there's going to be a transitional period. And we certainly have extended that period maybe a little bit further than what we would have envisioned going into it. But I really like the growth. I like how a lot of our guys have had to step up and take new roles that they just haven't had to do with the players we've had in the program previously. So it's been tough from a win-loss standpoint. But like we tell our guys all the time, let's not let the wins and losses define who we are as a team. Let's let the way we work, the way we treat each other, the way we do the things that take no talent. And we have a lot of growth behind the scenes. I really think we're trending in the right direction. We love coaching this group. I think it shows with some of the wins and some of the way we've competed down the stretch here. Some teams would play the schedule we've played and just fold up shop. And we're doing the exact opposite. You know, taking down Mosinee at Mosinee, getting tough and, getting really tough against the best teams in our league down the stretch here. And, again, we want to play our best basketball when it matters most. And when it's win or go home time, it doesn't matter what your record is. It matters what you believe and what you've worked to achieve to get to that point. And we think we can do some really good things here down the stretch.
And Coach, how big a deal? Because every time we go through and analyze what we see or what we know or what we read on paper, we're always talking about Everest as a dangerous, you can't get caught, like you said, you can't get caught up in their record because they're playing teams competitive. They're doing well in those non-conference games as much as they're battling in the league, which everybody's conference, when you coach in the conference, it's the best conference in the world. You're going to defend it to the death. But I guess just telling us a little bit about your team. What do you really, really like about them? And we talked off air a little bit about playing your best basketball. What are some things, hey, we still got to get to this point so that they can be where you think they need to be running into the postseason?
Yeah, we talk about 3 areas, whether it's practice, game, preparation. That's defense, rebounding, and value in the basketball. And I think from a defensive standpoint, we've made some adjustments that fit our personnel. There might be a way that, as you as a coach or you as a player want to play, but it takes some trial and error to really figure out who you are at this point. And so we've done some different things defensively, packed back a little bit more, maybe not as aggressive as what we'd ideally like to play. But I think you always got to tailor to what you do and what you do best. And that takes some time. Valuing the basketball is an area that we got to continue to get better at. We're just turning the ball over at too high of a rate right now to become the kind of team that I know we can become. In rebounding, we've been outstanding all year, and we got to continue to control the glass, continue to get 5 guys in the mix, continue to sneak in there and get some offensive rebounds. So that's, those 3 areas, we got to continue to really be intentional, the way we work at it, the way we focus on it, and really doing it together, 5 guys. As you know, all of those 3 areas takes 5 guys to get it done. And one guy doesn't do his job in one of those areas, you're gonna get exposed. So it's a process. It's continuing to show up every single day. What I love most about this group is they just keep showing up and wanting to work and want to be coached. And so we got great kids. Again, our record, we are not, whatever our record is, I don't even know what it is right now. Because really what I judge it by is, do the guys come in hungry, wanting to work every single day? And if they do that, then it doesn't matter what your record is, because we all make the thing. And where you want to get to, you got to keep winning. And it's a 1-game season once you get to that point. So really excited. Like I said, I think we're trending in the right way. We got great kids in the program. We're super young. We have 2 seniors. Colin Ebersol has been just a warrior for us this year. Leads us in rebounding, wins every sprint in practice, really showing the guys what it means to be a senior and how you work when you're a senior. And then A.J. Reynolds is a new guy to our program this year. And so really tip my cap to our 2 seniors. They've done a great job this year. And we owe it to them, right? Like, you get 1 year to be a senior basketball player for Everest. And we talk about that all the time, about being thankful for our opportunities and making sure that we send these 2 seniors out the right way.
Looking at some of the scores recently, it seems like you guys can do it in different ways. You gave up 31 last night against Merrill. You held Marshfield into the low to mid 40s in a very tight game. And then you get in the 70s against Mosinee and against East. Is that something that is, how do you see that? Does that mean that some nights you're better defensively, or are you capable of playing different styles of basketball?
Well, I think the best teams and the best programs and the best systems are able to win in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And that's what we want to be, all right? We're not there yet, but we can get there. And I think our young guys are starting to figure it out, that there's different games require different things. And, pace of play, tempo. We certainly knew we didn't want to have extra possessions against Marshfield. As efficient as they are offensively, when their defense is set, let's get that thing side, top, side, and let's get it side, top, side. Multiple times we shot almost 70% against Marshfield, but we still turned the ball over at a rate that didn't allow us to get the result that we wanted to get. But I mean, it was a 1-possession game under 2 minutes. They got a guy named Brooks Hinson that we don't have, and I think we've all seen how special he is. And he made some plays for them down the stretch, and it wasn't scoring. Brooks Hinson just wins, and he got offensive rebounds, and he got deflections. And so we're still growing into that, and it's taken us some time. But, yeah, absolutely. We want to be able to play any style, anywhere, anytime, and be able to compete and get results.
Last night, let's talk about that, because Merrill played East on Monday, and it was a tight game. They battled, and then last night they're back on their home court against you guys. What worked? Because that's a very impressive score to go anywhere in the Valley and to win by 62-31. What did your team do well last night?
Well, Merrill's a tough place to play, and we were concerned. They're coming off taking East right down the wire. We all know how good East is. We got off to a 23-0 start. So anytime you get
that helps.
There's no issues there. And we as coaches or even players, you make a lot into the game. But when you're making shots, everything's better. And when you're not, you're not. And so last night we got off to a great start. The first possession of the game, we talk about be the first when we're on the road. Be the first. Be the first to get an offensive rebound. Be the first to the free throw line. Be the first, ball on the deck, body on the deck. Be the first to take charge. Be the first to get a deflection. So those first things that we think are signs of playing hard. And Colin Ebersol got on the first possession an offensive rebound, drew a foul, be the first to make 2 free throws. He was the first to make 2 free throws. They came out in a box and won, and we screened in the backside of the zone. We have a guy by the name of Cade Felch, and if you leave him open, he's going to punish you. He had 6 made threes, I think, before they got out of that in the first half. So I think we just played to our strengths. I think we looked at how they were playing us, and we got a group of guys that celebrate each other's success. They knew Cade got it going, and they said, let's keep finding him. And that's a fun way to play. And then we couple that with, I thought our defensive intensity was at a level that it needed to be at. And like you guys said, when you get into conference play, most games are a coin flip, or a lot of them are. And that was certainly not a game that we anticipated doubling them up. But it was, again, I think it's a sign to our players and our program we're trending. And we're trending the way you want to be trending this time of year.
You told them before the game that you had to come here and talk tonight.
Exactly.
You got to have a big W here.
Exactly.
Again, we're talking to Oliver Drake, head boys basketball coach at DC Everest, here on the Big High School Sports Show.
Coach, has it ever been, you get your players in and you mold things around the players, and that's what you build with. I think that's the best thing about high school. We're not recruiting. They're in the school, and this is what we got to work with, and I think that's what makes it cool, because everybody's got to work with what they have. And do you ever have to take or set back or pause for a moment with a young group? Because it's so much different when you can say, in a couple of years, we'll talk to you and you'll be like, hey, yeah, they're experienced. They've been around the block before I got all these old guys. And then before, it's like, nope, we got the different patience, the confidence you got to drive, the way you got to approach to not make a mistake, feel like it hangs, but that they can learn from it. Is there anything that you find that you have to do a little differently with the youthfulness of your program this year, I guess?
Yeah, I think every year we're learning as coaches, just like the players are learning. I think the moment I think I've got it all figured out, I need to get out, and I think the moment you think you got it all figured out, you're going to get your tail kicked. So this year I've learned a lot, just kind of maybe the way I envisioned us playing defensively has changed dramatically to where we're at now. I think even offensively, some different things that we're doing. But I think every team is a work in progress. Some teams just early in the season have an identity because they have some proven guys that played those roles previously or know where their value was in previous seasons. We didn't have much of that because we lost a guy that's just a tremendous basketball player in person in Marcus Hall. So I think every year you're a work in progress. I think, you already think like next year, we're going to have so many guys returning where they know what we do, how we do it, and why we do it that way. And this year it was just a little bit more of teaching, reteaching, trying to stay patient, and you as a coach just, hey, maybe we envisioned it this way, but we got to be flexible enough to say, hey, it's not working. That's not us yet. And I always put that yet on there because I always say we're going to get there, but we're not there yet. So let's keep sticking with it. Let's keep showing up. Let's keep rolling up our sleeves and working. And I just can't credit our players enough. They just keep battling. And that's what's got me so excited about the end of the year. That's what's got my voice hoarse right now because we, coming off a practice where we're getting after it too. And that's just, I think I heard you guys earlier. This is just a fun time of year. This is where you get paid back on maybe some stuff you didn't get paid back on early. You got a chance to get paid back in a big way this time of year.
And how about the conference? Again, like I said before, you're in your conference, you coach in it, you play it. It's the best conference in the world. But in your 2 years in the time in the Valley here, I think from being a spectator on the outside that I think it's even more competitive and even more of a war this year. How would you label the Valley if somebody that didn't know what the Wisconsin Valley basketball is all about, being in the midst of as a coach or a program player, all that stuff?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And people can say their conference is the best, but how many teams in Division I basketball have 2 rated in the top 5? Yeah. And that's the Wisconsin Valley. And Marshfield and Point are legit. You have to beat them. They don't make losing plays. They both have point guards who are second to none in the entire state. And then you couple that with Wausau East, who in Division II I think has a legitimate chance of making a really deep run. And then how improved is Wausau West? I mean, you want to talk about a turnaround season. And so there are no off nights. In Rapids, you throw in there. I mean, there's just no, and I know exactly, coaches talk, right? Everybody's league's the best. But I think our league is proving that. Our league is very, very, very good this year. And well-coached, great players, some really, really good college caliber kids in the league that I don't think we've had the depth, certainly didn't last year, And unfortunately, a lot of them are underclassmen too. So it's going to be good for a long time to come.
You talked about the battle in your group, and I thought one of the most impressive things was to lose that game against East, where you battled, you put yourself in a position to win, and one of those miracle shots takes, in a big environment and a big game, and yet your team has been able to, I don't know if you say learn from it, but hey, you get knocked down, you get back up. And I imagine as you get into situations at the end of the regular season, and especially in the postseason, you got to have that ability where if either a call goes against you or an opponent goes on a bit of a run, you got to have that stick-to-itiveness to keep battling, and it sounds like that's what this group does.
Absolutely. And I think that's where you truly show who you are. In those tough moments, who are you? I think that's when it gets all peeled back. Who are you as a program? How do you come back and battle? And we came back and we battled Marshall right down to the wire. And then a game later, we beat Mosinee at Mosinee. And I think that really showed us and showed, everybody that we're here. In our record, if there's a better, whatever our win-loss record is, if there's a better team in the state than us, I don't know who that is. Obviously, I'm biased. But we've really challenged ourselves this year. And I totally agree with you. Those are the things that I'm most proud of, and not just because it's going to help us in the season, but if these guys apply this to the rest of their lives, as we know, there's going to be adverse moments in your life. And if you can do that, we always talk about doing the next right thing right. It's not the mistake. It's not the outcome you didn't like. It's the response to that. And during those tough moments, can you respond right? And this group has continued to do that. Love coaching these guys. And really look forward to seeing us play our best basketball down the stretch.
Let me ask you about Cohen Preby. We had him here a few weeks ago. Really great to have him, and it was really another good discussion. As Jeff said, he's been around. He's been playing a lot of big minutes and a lot of big basketball games and a lot of success. Could you talk a little bit about where he is as a player and maybe what you're thinking in terms of his ability to continue to take those steps?
Well, he's a guy we lean heavily on. He's thrown, everybody throws everything at him from a defensive standpoint. What I think I'm most proud of Cohen and his growth is last night he had 9 rebounds. We've challenged him, and he's challenged himself, right? Cohen's in the gym early in the morning, in season, out of season. Nobody's putting in more time than Cohen Preby. But we've challenged him on the stuff outside of what, most outsiders view, did you play well based on points? And what we're trying to tell them is, hey, the best point guards, their floor game is outstanding. Rebounds, assist-to-turnover ratio, getting our team huddled during dead balls, never letting any quiet moments, always getting the talk right on the floor. And he's just been unbelievable all year. I still think there's a ton of opportunity and growth there for him. I think he's far from a finished product. I'm sure you enjoyed talking with him. He's a super smart guy. Just a great all-around guy. Yeah, I think we all treat him as like he's like this old grizzled veteran. Now he is becoming one. He's in, second half of his junior year, but he's still got a whole nother year with us. And so we're really, really excited about his growth. Again, it's the stuff outside of scoring. I just think it's so hard for so many of these kids because they've grown up around points. But I think you've seen it, and I think you see it in our league. These teams that are leading our league, they have point guards that don't care about that. They want to win, and they'll get the tough rebound. They'll get the deflection late in the game. They'll get the really unbelievable stopping on 2 feet and sticking to a teammate who's got the 100% look. And I think Cohen has that ability to become one of the elite point guards in our league. I think there's a couple of them there that are leading their teams right now, and I really think that's going to be our next step. But he's been an unbelievable head coach, unbelievable guy just to see him the way he works every single day. And we really think there's still a lot of room there for him to get even better, which is pretty exciting for us.
And Coach, jumping back in just to the scheduling, do you have, obviously you always have more games in your conference when you see these teams second time around, and we've already talked a lot about the conference, how it's still going to be a war every night. How about your non-conference games? I guess some of the teams you got left, and how big a deal it is that sometimes it is a Thursday, Saturday getting them ready. Because I remember when I was doing that, sometimes we tried to take the pressure off them and say, hey, we're out of our gym, we're out of the area, let's just go have some fun and get back down to basics. Other times, like, no, this is going to build the toughness and the physicality that we want because we're getting ready for the playoffs. I mean, any specific approach you take on those, and any of the some of the teams that are coming up that you might have left if there's only a couple in there yet?
Yeah, we only have one non-conference game left. We've played Appleton North, who's top 5 in the state. We've played Hortonville, who's out of the Fox Valley, who has Division I play. I mean, we've played borderline too many good non-conference teams. I think I heard you guys talking earlier, too, that balance of you don't want to get beat down so much. And I think we were affected a little bit by just our schedule. I think in the long run, it's really going to pay us back. But we don't take any different approach, whether it's conference or non-conference. Obviously, all of our goals lie within conference play, right? Like everybody wants to win a conference championship. But at the end of the day, what's most important and where you continue to play is not in conference play. It's at the end of the year and, playing for those seedings. So I think we'll be paid back this year already just with our strength of schedule will be through the roof. We still have one non-conference game in Wisconsin Dells, who's, I want to say, maybe a 15 or 16 win team. We have them on Saturday, so I told myself I'm not looking at them, but I did sneak a peek a little bit this weekend because they do some different things. But, yeah, conference, non-conference, it's like, hey, it's another opportunity to be thankful for our opportunities to compete. Let's do it together. Let's get after it, and let's just continue to get better. And I think that's most importantly, conference or non-conference, being really consistent with our approach and our messaging. Because when you build these certain games up more than what they are, I just think that's where you see the peaks and valleys, and just trying to be really consistent with the areas that we control, and that's defense, that's rebounding, that's valuing the ball, and then really consistent with our mindset. I think that's where consistency can take place. And again, we haven't been yet as consistent as what I think we can be, but I think it doesn't matter what game it is. We want to be a program that's really thankful for our opportunities. Like when you really scrape all this stuff back, man, it's pretty cool what we get to do, and not forgetting about that too. And I think that thankfulness for the opportunity is where you don't got to worry about playing hard. You get to do stuff that not everybody else gets to do. And I think that's lost a lot of times in a lot of this, is just breaking it right back down to, man, we're healthy enough to do this. You get to do it together. You got people in the stands that love you and care about you. And when you really break sports down that way, then you don't got to talk about playing hard, because that's a given. And I think when you forget about the opportunity and you put it as an obligation, I think that's where things get messed up. So that's what we try to do. That doesn't mean we're perfect. We're certainly not perfect. I'm not perfect. But we just keep trying to get better and try to keep things in the right light with the way that we approach them.
And tomorrow night, I'm looking forward to being over there at DC Everest, Wausau West and DC East, second time around this season. Again, it should always be a great atmosphere. The first time around, I think your team is a much better team than it was back then. I don't think that was your best night. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. but I credit West. I really credit them.
So what about tomorrow night? I mean, obviously it's a significant game, and something Jeff always talks about. The second time around, you want to be much better than the first time, whether it's winning the game, and obviously that's the goal, but also just to be better against a good basketball team. What are you looking at tomorrow night as maybe keys for your team against, again, a Wausau West team that I thought played really a good game against Rapids on Friday?
Well, Wausau West is really good. And the thing about Wausau West is they're going to bring the fight to you. So, number one, we better match or surpass anything they bring from a physicality, defense, rebounding. We've really challenged our guys to be the best versions of themselves in those areas, because I think that's the area that I thought we just flat out got kicked in that game. And I think we own that. And I think we don't try to sugarcoat any of it. That is what happened. And if we use that, it'll give us a ticket to a place that I think we want to get to. So that's the challenge. I just think Wausau West is really good. I think they have a way of really controlling tempo. They did some things to us defensively that other teams hadn't done that far, with just downing some of our live ball dribbles and providing help early, and we picked our dribble up in trouble. And we just did a lot of things that played right into their hands. And again, I tip my cap to West. I look forward to our response. And but if we're not ready and strapped up, and we don't match or surpass what they bring to the table from a physicality standpoint, it'll be the exact same thing. So we need to be ready to go. I'm confident our guys will be ready to go. We've had some good work up into it. But these crosstown rival games, I mean, they're a flip of the coin. It doesn't matter the records. You can toss those out. It's going to be physical. It's going to be fun. And most importantly, I want it to be an opportunity for our guys to really show the best versions of who they are.
Anything else, Jeff?
Well, yeah, because I always like to get the coach's opinion. Jump in, I guess. We talked, question before I got in my head right away. Take one game at a time. I get it, even though we jumped way out there because we need some answers, right? But looking at the playoffs in general, I guess I'm always curious of coach's opinion because when I did that, it was always the regional meeting in the room, getting ganged up on or not, and hopefully having a buddy there to support you or not. And I've never was part of the computer system, so I don't know if you've been part of both, but I guess just getting your take on, do you like the computer system?
I do. I think there's some good to it. I think you always can find a reason to bellyache. I think it's just like, hey, it's our system right now. What good does it do to bellyache about it though? You know what I mean? Like why would I spend my time and energy complaining about computers? I'm just not going to do that. Wherever we're supposed to go and play, that's where I'm going to put my time and energy into. But I will tell you, our messaging to our team is every year there's a team across the country at every level of basketball that everybody's written off. And there's always a story to be written. And I just really believe we could be that story. I think there is. It doesn't matter where it is. But that story's written because there's dudes in the locker room and there's dudes working every day that don't let labels define who they are. And don't let records define who they are or how they work or what they believe. And so what the computers believe, whatever our seat is, we're going to strap it up. We're going to play that. But, I mean, I don't worry. I don't spend my time and energy wasting about that stuff. I spend my time and energy pouring into our team. And I think that's the best way to go. Again, you may ask me down the road, and I may think I may give you a totally different answer. But that's where I'm at. Last year there was a lot of and there always is a lot of chatter about that stuff. I just don't think that's time best spent.
Head coach Oliver Drake of the DC Everest Evergreens. Again, we'll have the game tomorrow night, West and Everest, 7 o'clock pregame right here on Bull Falls Radio. Really appreciate you stopping on by. It's a great discussion, and again, congrats on the battle that your team has had, and looking forward to seeing what your team does the rest of the season. But thanks again for stopping by.
Awesome. Really appreciate you guys. You guys do a great job, and thanks for putting high school sports and in the right light. Appreciate you guys.
Oliver Drake of the Evergreens. We're going to take a break and come back. Big High School Sports Show, Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
Record-breaking performances already this week and some huge games on tap for this weekend. I'm Travis Wilson, and this is a WisSports.net Minute brought to you by NFHSNetwork.com. More high school sports news after this.
Do you ever wish you could be in two places at once? With homework, carpool, practice, and everything else, sometimes you just can't make it to every game. But the NFHS Network's streaming platform makes that a little easier. For just $11.99 a month, you can watch unlimited high school sports live and on demand, at home or on the go. You can watch online or on one of our mobile or connected TV apps. Visit NFHSNetwork.com and subscribe today to never miss another game.
A new boys basketball coaches poll came out on Tuesday, and there's a new top team in Division 4, where Marathon replaces Mineral Point atop the rankings. The second installment of the Pewaukee-Wisconsin Lutheran rivalry is set for this Friday, as the top two teams in Division 2 square off. Also, Muskego takes on Arrowhead for control of the Classic 8 conference. The Verona girls basketball team has featured some incredible players over the years, including all-state selections and Division I athletes. On Tuesday night, senior Reagan Briggs etched her name in school history, passing 1,500 career points and becoming the program's all-time leading scorer as the Wildcats downed Madison La Follette 73-43 to remain undefeated. Also Tuesday, Hortonville junior Rainey Wilson broke the school's career scoring record as she poured in 20 points in a 66-44 win over Oshkosh North. In another marquee girls game from Tuesday, Division 5 second-ranked Argyle Pecatonica rallied to defeat fourth-ranked Albany Monticello 50-41 to take control of the Six Rivers East. The WIAA will release the girls basketball playoff brackets on Sunday at 11 a.m. Be sure to head over to WisSports.net for the full information, including the regional seeds, which will once again be done via computer formula, matchups, brackets, and the path to state for every team. This has been a WisSports.net Minute. Check us out online at WisSports.net and search Apple for the WSN podcast.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show, Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. BullFallsRadio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Well, let's jump into girls high school basketball. Wisconsin Valley Conference, Stevens Point still leads the way at 10-0. They're 15-6 overall. Marshfield 9-1. Two-team race at the top of the league, 14-7. Wausau West has moved into third place. They're now 6-4 in the conference, 8-12 overall. Wisconsin Rapids 5-5 in the league, 7-14. Merrill 3-6, 10-10. Wausau East 2-8, 6-14, and DC Everest still looking for that first conference win. And looking at some of the action, Stevens Point staying perfect with a couple of overwhelming wins, 74-30 over DC Everest Thursday. Adelia Nest, 17. Jada Seibert, outstanding freshman of 15. Kirsten Hall at 10 for DCE. And then Stevens Point last night, rolled past Merrill, 66-34. Ellie Strong, 16. Adelia Nest and Jada Seibert each had 12. And for Marshfield, they beat Wausau East last Thursday, 69-49. Zayeda Kolbeck, 20. For Marshfield, Claire Cushman, 18 for the Lumberjacks. And Marshfield had a non-conference win on Monday, 57-31. Obviously, those teams right now, the head and shoulders. And when they're not facing each other, they're taking care of business in rather significant ways.
Yeah, you can see in the score differential. It's funny with Spash because we were talking I just remember at the beginning of the season that
I think they lost their first 3 or 4 games in a row.
3 and 4 rings a bell at one where they hadn't played that well, and they were like, are they going to get it turned around? Are they going to be okay? And now they're sitting at an unblemished record in the conference. So, doing really well, and you can see the significance in the scores. They're going out and owning those games the way they can on the scoreboard.
And great balance. I mean, they have a number of kids that really step up and each and every night are capable of double-digit points.
Yeah, and I think that makes a big difference when you got teams, which I think we're seeing a lot of both the boys and the girls' valleys, just these teams that are diversifying themselves at the top are balanced and they're dangerous. They got different guys that can put the guys and girls that can put the ball in the hole, and you definitely see out of the Spash girls and the Marshfield girls, and it's going to come down again to probably to that. It's coming up Friday where they're going to play each other, and whoever conference title, or you tie it or you got it by yourself.
And Wausau West is playing better. I mean, they really had a struggle early on. They beat Rapids 58-48 last Thursday. They beat Everest last night. They played a good Holman team Saturday and lost 61-52. But even in that game, they had 4 players between 12 and 14 points, with Harper Mead 14, Kelly Cray, Ayla Christensen, Paige Anderson 12 each. It's a team that was over the holidays. They were getting out 20 points. I mean, they were in the 20s both games in their holiday tournament, really struggling. And it's a team that is really getting much better. And I think as they get towards the end of the season, they get to the playoffs, they got some kids that they got some size, as Cray and Mead are both 6-footers, and you got Christensen, who's capable of filling it up, and Anderson as well. I do think, like the Everest boys, that maybe the West girls are capable of stepping up in a certain situation and putting at least a scare into a much higher ranked team.
Yeah, even some of the girls that have been on that team for a time have experienced success. So they on other seasons, or I should say more success in the win column than they have this year. So I think that, plus the culmination of just putting the ball in the basket, allows you to, as a coach, diversify your game a little bit. It allows as a player to feel a little more confident when that ball's going in at the right time. So to have the higher amount of point totals and that consistency on offense, I think is leading them to, increase their Valley wins a little bit and maybe find something to build off of as they go down. Plus, I think when you're a first-year coach, there's a lot that's going on. There's a lot that you're figuring out, and there still is, like Coach Drake alluded to, in your second year, you're still figuring it out. So you never have all the answers, but coaches that are well invested, which they all are constantly analyzing, constantly tweaking things to put their kids in the best light, and constantly hammering home the message that's going to do that. And I think when you get some consistencies and something to build off, that can maybe get you into a situation where you weren't supposed to be in, whether it's an upset win in the playoffs, whether it's a little more consistency down the stretch. But I think it takes time that first year to get that in. And this might be the West girls' time finally where things are starting to come together.
Merrill beat Everest on Saturday 59-39. I want to mention this because Maya Ott had 19 points in that game. She surpassed 1,000 on her career, and she's been just such a foundational piece for Coach Mike DeBoer and that program over the last few years, and that's a big accomplishment.
Yeah, anytime you can you put that amount of points in the basket, that's a lot to have at the end of the career. But also, it's going to help your team because you're going to be somebody they can lean on, somebody they can rely on for those baskets when you need it. So, a good accomplishment when those high school athletes are able to do that.
And a tough loss last night for East. Yeah, they've been battling. They've still stuck on 2 conference wins. They beat Everest twice, and last night, 56-54 lost to Rapids. And it's the second time this year, one possession loss for East against Rapids. And in fact, that's the difference between East right now being in 6th place in the conference. They win those 2 one-possession games against Rapids. They're right up to right behind West in 4th.
Right, yeah. And
those tight games are the ones that kind of, as a coach, I imagine that keeps you up late at night.
Yeah, those are the ones that are always hard because, again, it's in a tight game, it's one mistake it can come down to. Somebody's key turnover, somebody's missed shot. There's so many you can list, and that makes it a lot difficult. The next day when you're looking at records or statistics or things like that come kind of back to bite you. But that's part of the learning process in high school athletics, and as your players and program and your team will know is we got to build off that. We got to find a way the next time to get over that hump in that tight game, and hopefully you learn from it. So the next time you get in there, that same mistake's not made, or if you make it, you fight through it and find a way to make up for it. So you get the W and come out ahead on the scoreboard.
And again, whenever we talk about East and Merrill, just like with the boys, it'll be interesting to see how they compete in Division II. It's always it's one of those interesting aspects, isn't it?
I think it's a great place to be in when you can go into your conference and get a good game every night from top to bottom, and when you are the lower divisional team in that conference, it's just making you tougher. How many times have you seen it where Green Bay, New Lutheran over in the East, they're a Division V team and with all these lower teams on the boys' side, and they would get down to state with a 7-14 record just because they got so built up in their conference and it was difficult. I think those teams reap the benefits when you're the lower divisional team in your conference and you're playing higher divisions.
Great Northern Conference. Lakeland continues to roll. They're 11-0, 19-2 overall. Rhinelander 9-1, 16-5 overall. Mosinee now 6-4 in the conference, 14-7. Then Medford at 5-5, 10-12. Pines 3-7 in the league. Antigo 2-9. Tomahawk 0-10. Lakeland again showing their wares, rolling past Pines Friday, Monday. Big one against Mosinee, and the second time this season. Lakeland beat Mosinee 70-47. Christina Wilmette 22. Sailor Timmerman 18. Talon Jershely 18 for Mosinee. A bit of a moral victory, holding Wilmette to 22 points. Usually she's up around 30, 32. And then Mosinee did bounce back last night, beating Pine 72-38, with Jershely with 16, Caitlin Sell 11, Daisy Spink with 10. So, but again, Lakeland, and again, I noticed over the past week there was an announcement, the Miss Basketball, the finalists for the Miss Basketball in Wisconsin, 5 players, 2 of which are at Notre Dame Academy, which is in the same bracket as Lakeland in Division II, which has made Coach Wilmette very upset.
Right, yeah, we mentioned that the last,
yeah. Yeah, it's like, it's like, man, I mean, it's going to, and again, you want to try and, even if it was at state, you'd have to beat them somewhere, right?
Right.
But, boy, I mean, brackets sometimes have such a big factor because this is a really good Lakeland squad.
I mean, unfortunately, at the beginning of the day, everybody sets out that those brackets are going to give you the fairest path for each team to whether it ends their season or is allowed to propel all the way down to state. So for Lakeland, they've been up to tasks like that before. They've you see them keep progressing a little bit farther each year. Last year, finally getting down to state and breaking through some of the sectional games, and they're dangerous. As much as you might want to say one team has 1 Miss Basketball and the other has 2, if they match up, Lakeland's not small, and they got a good supporting cast that balances that lineup out pretty well. So again, those ladies are in control of the conference. Even though looking at second place, Rhinelander's hanging around with a nice record with some youth on that team. 1 game back, they still get Lakeland another time. I mean,
I think it's coming up in the next week.
Yeah, I think it's it might be. It might be this Friday. I'm not sure if it's this Friday or next Friday. It doesn't matter right now.
No, it's going to be in this week. So
so then it's this Friday.
It is, in Rhinelander Friday night.
Yeah, and the home court. So it makes again for a nice storyline for us as the spectators. But Rhinelander's done a nice job, a 16-5 mark, and come off beat some teams they should have in their conference. For Mosinee, I think solid, but they have to keep fighting through everything. Obviously, I don't think anybody's come that close to Lakeland, so Lakeland's kind of owned themselves, but still getting a couple W's at a 14-7 mark.
Merriwood South, Assumption still perfect on the season, 14-0 in conference, 20-0 overall. Auburndale 10-4 in conference, 14-7. Stratford 9-5, 12-10. Edgar 6-8, 9-11. Newman Catholic 4-10 in the conference, 5-15. Marathon 3-11, 6-15. Looking at some of the action again, Assumption had a battle against Athens last Thursday. 54-53. Athens led at halftime. Assumptions earned the win. Sophia Coker 27 for Athens, and a Schooley 16. Addie Volert 10 points, 13 boards. But and again, I'm going to merge here with the Merriwood North real quickly, because Phillips is 13-1 in that conference. Athens 11-3, and you got Phillips, Athens, Assumption. And those three teams could face off again as we get, in the postseason. What Athens did last Thursday, taking Assumption to the brink in Rapids, I thought was a really eyebrow-raising result.
Well, and if you just rewind a little bit with Assumption, for them, on the flip side, they've got the Athens win, they've got the Phillips win, they've got the unblemished record right now, and I think they're also going to challenge themselves.
Aquinas.
And Pacelli also just won that conference, I think, or won a big game yesterday against Pittsfield. So I think they might have won
they're both two really good.
So they're going to play that
conference.
But I do think it makes very interesting moments in Division V basketball as these teams are going to separate out of their regionals and start having to face off to get down to state. Because for Athens, it gives you, I think, a bit of momentum to say, hey, we have 8 losses overall. Maybe we weren't supposed to play with this team, but now they're the team that took them as far as they possibly could. And now 1 point loss is, again, just a matter of one less turnover, one better executed possession, one less silly mistake or unforced error. I mean,
wasn't it Athens in the last year or so? Was it last year or the year before where they went to Assumption in either a regional or sectional game and went right down to the buzzer too? I mean, it seems like I recall that one that was played in Rapids. So it must have been a regional final. I think it may have been last year where it ultimately went down to the last play of the game. It was a one-possession game. So whatever it is, Athens is very comfortable at the Assumption gym.
Well, and that's a good thing. And then their athletes rise to the occasion. I mean, I saw Athens play Newman earlier in the year. They got a lot of size. They got a lot of athleticism. Those girls can put the ball in the basket. For Phillips, one of the fastest teams in the Merriwood up and down the floor. And then you got Assumption that's had the tradition. They've been down to state. They will press you and trap you and wreak havoc in trying to get the turnovers and make it very hard to get the ball up and down the floor. So I think 3 quality teams that, when those face-off happen, those are going to be some fun high school basketball games to watch.
Absolutely. And anything else about the Merriwood you want to mention before we take a break?
Just look.
Anybody you want to shout out to? Anything you notice?
No, I guess for, just working at the school, so watching teams play better around the second time. I was able to catch the Newman girls in Stratford. I know the first time it was a little bit tougher over there going but bouncing back. You see people playing a little bit better basketball as they go down the stretch here. Still a war within the Merriwood on the girls' side, but those 3 teams. I'm waiting to see. You're going to say you're right on Athens? Did you?
Well,
check
I asked you that. I asked you that question to delay. And I did look back. It wasn't last year. It was 2 years ago in a regional final. Assumption 61, Athens 60. So my memory is still.
The power of the internet, how fast you can get things and be right.
But I mean, it's really amazing. That's 2 1-point games in the last 2 years where Athens went into probably the toughest gym in the Merriwood right now and had a chance to win.
Well, it is good, if you can break, because Assumption is such a system. They run their system, and they run it really well with those girls. And to be able to attack that and break that down, I think, is a good thing.
We're going to come back. We still have an hour to go here on the program. A little less than an hour. We're running a little behind because there's so much to talk about. We still have, again, we get through everything there as well. But we're going to come back in 2 minutes and talk to our student-athlete guest for this week from Wausau East, one of the Lumberjack seniors on the boys basketball team, and a guy that knows Jeff Gress very well, Isaac Roswadowski. So we'll have a shake of the head. You just hate when I say something like that, don't you?
Well, no, that could be good or bad.
Okay,
for him.
okay.
We'll go to commercial.
We'll be right back here on Bull Falls Radio.
If you're looking for your next ride, check out Mankey GMC in Schofield. Formerly Fred Miller Automotive, Mankey GMC serves Schofield, Wausau, Marshfield, and Stevens Point with a huge selection of new and pre-owned vehicles. Explore a range of top-notch SUVs like Acadia, Terrain, and Yukon, or choose from the rugged Sierra truck lineup, or even a certified pre-owned vehicle. No matter your dream vehicle awaits at Mankey GMC, 448 Grand Avenue in Schofield, and online at MankeyAuto.com. Mankey GMC in Schofield, where your journey begins.
Take your career to the next level with Graphic Packaging International. Work with a team to make Hot Pocket sleeves and the food trays you find at our local fair. Join the GPI team and experience the benefits of one of the highest paying manufacturers in the area, starting at almost $22.55 per hour. Enjoy job security, a clean facility, and an excellent benefits package, including a week of vacation after 4 months and 2 weeks after a year. Apply today at graphicpkg.com and elevate your career with Graphic Packaging.
We are the NFHS. That stands for the National Federation of State High School Associations. But really, what we stand for, together with the WIAA, are the 178,000 high school sports students in Wisconsin. And so we stand. We stand for the runners, soccer and basketball players. We stand for their coaches, administrators, and officials. We stand for the swimmers, football players, and wrestlers. We stand for the golfers, softball, and volleyball players. We stand as the national leader and advocate for high school athletics and all who participate in them and make them possible, because it is our purpose to ensure that high school students get to play, perform, and compete together. To learn more about who we are and what we stand for, visit nfhs.org.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. BullFallsRadio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes, and time for our student-athlete guest for this week. From Wausau East High School, member of the Wausau East boys basketball team, senior Isaac Roswadowski. And Isaac, thank you for coming on over.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm going to start off by saying number one, it's been a very exciting season for your team. Not just because you've won 2/3 of your games or even a little bit more than that and have been battling at the top of the Wisconsin Valley Conference, but you played a lot of nail-biters. I mean, games that would go right down to the wire. I mean, just exciting for the players, exciting for the fans, exciting for anybody that follows high school basketball. What has this season been like? Because there have been just really incredible finishes. I think probably, of course, Everest being the top one in terms of excitement at the end, but even last week against Marshfield, against Stevens Point at home, it's been really an exciting year, hasn't it?
Yes, it has been, and I think it's really just a story of our conference. I think our conference is a very tough conference, and I think every game, no matter where you go, is going to be a nail-biter, and you've seen that recently, and a lot of these games, no matter what the record is, you're going into them knowing it's going to be a nail-biter, and hopefully you run away with it in the beginning, but a lot of the times it's going to have to be played out all the way till the end, and I think overall for every school, that's just a fun environment to be at, and I mean, as you saw with the Everest game, Jesse hit that last buzzer beater shot, and who doesn't want to win like that? Obviously, someone would probably like to blow out a team right from the beginning, but those are also fun, and those also build the character of a team, so you need to have those ones too.
And Coach Drake was even nice to you when you saw him when he came in, so he doesn't hold a grudge against East at this point.
Well, and Isaac, how just your journey, you've started since you were a freshman, and now it's it's kind of come full circle, and senior year. What's been how difficult that is, because we as a player, you want to get right in the mix at the varsity level if you're a true competitor. As a coach, you love to have guys around for a long time. How was the adjustment for you? I don't think we always ask that. Like, you went in there right away from 8th grade basketball to freshman basketball, and it's a lot, I think. But what was it in your eyes? What did you look at it as when you got that opportunity right away your freshman year?
I mean, definitely coming in, it was a new thing. we were coming off COVID, so it was a different situation. There hadn't been a summer. I didn't get to know. I transferred to Wausau East right in the middle of my freshman year, right before the basketball season. So I didn't know a lot of the guys, a lot of the upperclassmen. And just coming into it, I think it was just a lot of team bonding, getting to know the guys, and just getting back into the system after COVID. Coach Garrett was a new coach that year. We had a new system being implemented. And, it was hard. It's a new level. It's a new speed. It's a new strength. It takes a lot of different things than middle school basketball. So I think just coming in, I was taking it slow, getting experience day by day, and just learning from the upperclassmen every day.
And now let's fast forward a little bit with your team. In the thick of things in the Valley, doing well, great record. What I like, because I get to see obviously a lot of your games, I think it's just balanced. You got bigs in the middle. You got guys that do the dirty work. You got guys that are relied on to score, and the team defense is strong. I think all good things. And experience. I think experience is a big deal, too, because you got a lot of upperclassmen that have logged a lot of minutes from an early time on, from the time they were younger, too. You had other guys following those same footsteps that were playing as freshmen. What, I guess, right now, in your evaluation of the team, what do you really like that makes East basketball what it is when teams come to face you on the floor?
I would agree with you. I think our team has a lot of versatility, and I think that's what I love about the team, and I think that's credit to our program, to all the coaches in the program. I think at every level they build their players up really well, and they develop all their players. And I think this team that we have built this year really started last year. We knew what we could accomplish, but we knew last year was really going to be a developmental year, a new year just of getting to know each other, knowing how to play with each other, and I think that really shows this year. And I think people know what their roles are. People know what they have to do. They know each other. They know just how to play with each other better. So I think that would be my favorite thing about this team, just the connection we all have, and just knowing each other, knowing what we have to do, and knowing what our goal is at the end of this year.
And I got one. I'm going to steal one more.
Go for it.
Give me one more.
Go for it.
And so go with roles. When I see you play, it's about the little things. Sticking somebody on defense and harassing them all game. Taking a charge that's not going to feel good. Making that extra pass. Getting a bucket when the time is that you need to get the bucket. Waiting that timeout and that time for that opportunity. And so all the little things. And I think sometimes, when we're talking with Coach Drake and we've talked about it, unfortunately on everything that's showing, it's stats here and stats there. And that's just what naturally throughout time in sports people have been driven to. But I think it's you need those unsung hero moments where, yeah, I took 3 charges tonight, but it's not going to show up. By the way, I got 5 rebounds here, and I didn't get that the last game. I dished out a couple extra assists. How important is it to you, or is that how you define your role? As I'm going to do all the little things. At the end of the night, it's just about the scoreboard.
Yeah, I take pride in that. I try to do my best in everything, whatever that role is for the specific game, because it can change for every game. But yeah, definitely charges are a huge part of my game. I love taking charges because I feel like that's just a motivation for the team in any game. And I think a lot of the people on our team, that's a huge thing that's emphasized on our team. So charges are a big motivation in the game, and just a switch in the game. A charge can change momentum in a game. But a lot of the other things too, like assists, boards, all of them, it doesn't have to be points. A lot of time the points get recognized because obviously the score is what the score is at the end of the game, and that's what you have to do. But I think a lot of these games that we've played recently, you've seen they're close nail biters, and honestly, defense and the little things really are what decide the ending of the game. So I think all the players on the team have accepted that, and I think that's a huge role that I accept, just to do whatever I can to be a good point guard on this team and to play the toughest defense I can.
Again, we're talking to Isaac Rozwadowski from Wausau East High School and the boys basketball team here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Kind of piggybacking on one of the many questions Jeff just asked you. The middle one, actually talking about the development over the years of the process. And something popped into my mind. Did you and your teammates have to learn how to win? Because obviously your team has got better and better and better. And even last year, you were a much more, I think, more competitive team. And then this year, to take it to the next level, to be with up in the battle for the conference championship, and already with more than 15 wins on the season. But did this group have to learn how to win to take that next step?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think this year we've been a lot better at it. I don't think any team is going to say that they're perfect at learning how to win. Obviously, there's going to be some mistakes. There's going to be turnovers or bad decisions made at the end of the game that sometimes it happens, and those are learning moments. But I think last year was definitely a huge year to learn what we needed to do. I think by the end of the year last year, you really saw that we started to understand what we needed to do to win. Not taking that extra shot at the end of the game, knowing how to protect the ball, trusting each other, trusting your teammates, just knowing what to do at the end of the game. I think that really showed at the end of the stretch last year, and then coming to this year, reestablishing that in the beginning of the year, and now we're getting closer to that championship part of the season, and just I think in practice you can see it, and in games you're starting to see that we're way better at that.
And talking about roles, it feels like when I've seen your team play that some nights you get, when you're feeling it, you get the opportunity. That everybody, you have so many kids that are capable of filling it up. And I'll use the example that I mentioned to you before we started the game against Wausau West about a month ago, where in the first half, where it was kind of tight at one point, and then all of a sudden you had a mini run yourself. And it looked like you have the freedom where each of your players have that freedom where, hey, if I got an opportunity, I'm going to be able to take advantage of it. Is that basically the feel for your group of guys?
Yeah, that's totally the feel. Coach Garrett does a great job to implement that. We don't need a top scorer on the team. We can have multiple top scorers on the team. It doesn't need to be the same guy every single day. And a lot of the times, that guy's Jesse, but the teams are starting to throw new defenses at us, and we know that sometimes that's just not how it's going to be. So I think you saw on Monday night in the Merrill game, Jaden stepped up, and in different games, it just changes based on the game. And I think that's a strength of our team because when one guy gets taken out of the game, we can always have someone else step up.
And I know recently, coaches scheduled to challenge you, and you get in your conference, you get plenty of battles there too. And I know you guys have done a couple back-to-backers in terms of where you played a hard-fought conference game Friday night, you turn around, you got to play Saturday. And I think that there's resiliency there and toughness and versatility of the team that it's only going to make you better doing those types of things. Looking at how your guys' schedule has gone, how tough has that schedule been? Has it challenged you enough to the point where it's like you think your team it's making your team grow, even though you guys are like you're an experienced group, you're a bunch you're older guys out there, but you think that schedule's challenging you a lot?
I mean, I think especially this last week, it was we had the Friday game against Marshfield, and we had a tough loss there, and then we went up to Madison Memorial on Saturday, had another tough loss there, but then we came back Monday and got a nice win over Merrill. So I think, even though it's tough to face the losses, they're good, hard-fought games against good teams, and I think that we really can learn from those. And I think going off learning how to win, I think those are points where you saw we weren't perfect and that we can grow from those. And I think then picking it up against Merrill, a tough Monday game after coming off a rough weekend, I think we showed that it was a close game. It was going to be a close game because it's a tough conference game. But I think we showed that no matter the factors, we were able to pull out of that one.
And you see a lot of, one of the things, since I've, obviously watched you guys over the years to come see a handful of your games, is I see a belief. You know what I mean? I see a growth in belief. Like we got this, now we want this. We got the, and I think I've seen that where you're trying, some of even the times in games, like take the Marshfield game, where a little bit separation comes and then you guys close the gap again, and all of a sudden you got the lead, and then it's back and forth a little bit. Dude, you never go away and you never stop being in that moment. What are the hopes as you go down here in the leftover conference games you have and in the playoffs? I think some of that's because it's for you, it's your senior year, so a lot of that's going to be a huge deal. And I think now's a great moment with the balance between the junior and senior classes you have in that lineup. That's a good solidified basketball team that you have there. What are you looking forward to? Go for it.
Well, I think that obviously our one of our hopes this year is to win a conference championship, and I think. After that tough loss to Marshfield, that will be a very hard feat to overcome. But I think just battling in the conference, that's preparing us for the playoff play and for ultimately keeping our eyes on the goal, which is obviously to make it all the way to state. And I think that's been a goal of this team for a while. I think we even saw it last year, and we've just been building up to that point. And we know it's going to be tough, but I think it's just coming in everyday practice and working super hard and keeping your eye on the goal and just taking each day as a day to get better. And I think this conference play is really preparing us, and I think our schedule has prepared us. We've played some pretty tough teams, and I think these close wins and these close losses that we've had will really prepare us for that playoff run, and even the tough schedule too for the Friday, Saturday games that we're going to have.
Again, talking to Isaac Rozwadowski from Wausau East here on the Big High School Sports Show. As a senior, how do you look at your role as a leader? Is it something that has changed this year after being part of this program since being a freshman? Have you taken on leadership responsibilities, or how does that work for this group of Lumberjacks?
Yeah, I definitely think last year was a year where I needed to take a step up to be a leader as a junior, but we did still have seniors on the team that could obviously lead our team. I think this year that step was even bigger. So I'm a big lead by example type of guy, and I think this year I've been a little better at speaking up a little more. I think every day is a day to get even better at that. Sure. I know that's not my most comfortable feature, but every day I'll try to get better at that and continue to lead by example in practice. I always try to work my hardest, and I think it's just taking them guys, showing them we do have this goal at the end of the year. We know what it's going to take to get there, and just taking it day by day, like I said before.
Along the same lines, looking back to when you did start your varsity experience as a freshman up to this point, what are the areas you've taken the biggest strides in? What are the areas you're most proud of in terms of improving as a basketball player?
I think just developing that basketball IQ. I think just knowing what to do in the positions, knowing how to take control of the game, how to accept your role in the game, how to know what your role is in the game, and just doing the little things, knowing how to do the little things, and not getting too high, not getting too low when the rest of the team might be, and knowing how to bring them back in and how to keep your eye on how to win that game, because those moments might change the outcome of whatever happens.
Shifting to a different sport quick. Okay, you went out for football in middle school, came back out your senior year this year. I think at the end of the day, it's a big deal because it's hard to live life without any regrets. And you did something, you won't ever ask yourself, what if I played? But you went out. And for East, I think it was such a big deal to have a varsity team too. What did that season help? Did that season help lead into anything with basketball that made you stronger, made you better, made you appreciate something, whatever it was? How did football help you leading into the basketball season this year?
Yes, I believe a lot of the guys on the basketball team are on the football team. So I think, again, that was just a lot of team bonding every day at practice, getting to know the guys better, even though it was a different sport, knowing how they react, knowing how they act just for that next season. I think also just building, knowing how to win. I know we had, our first win against Lakeland, and I think getting that also brought motivation to all the guys, and that motivation carries from one sport into the other. And I think just having that with the guys, knowing what you've been through with the guys, I think that carries over totally to the other sport, and I think that helps us in this season, just knowing what we've been through, knowing what we can accomplish, knowing what we have accomplished. Also, losing in a different sport, knowing how to overcome that, knowing how to work and practice every day in a different sport, knowing what that grind is, and bringing that grind over to the next day.
Stepping away from athletics in school, what's your favorite class?
I would have to go with science classes. I don't know if I have a specific science class that I enjoy most, but definitely just that area.
And when you like to get away from it, maybe if you have a moment away from sports, away from studies, anything else, what do you like to do?
Just anything fun. I'm up for anything. Hanging out with friends mostly, and basically doing anything with them. Catching a movie or going out to eat a lot. Sports is a big part. It's a pretty busy season right now, but, in the summer, it's great to have different things to do.
And I know the answer to this, but then you can tell Chad, school you decided to go to, what you like about it, and if you have a preferred or an area of focus you want to go for your major at all yet. I know it's early yet.
So I'm going to University of Minnesota State at Mankato next year. And I really like the campus. I really like the school. Their programs are really good, and I was considering between education and physical therapy. So they had really strong programs in both those. And then currently I'm decided on pre-physical therapy for my major.
Was there a poll as well to go out of state? I mean, sometimes when you get to a certain point, you do want to experience maybe a little bit of a different area. Was that something that was a bit of a poll as well, or is it just strictly on how you like the campus and what they offer?
Yeah, no, it was definitely a pull. I mean, I applied for Wisconsin schools too, so I mean, it could have gone a different way also. But being out of state is something new, something fresh, so I'm excited for that. But it might have had some pull on.
And back to the basketball court, do you allow yourself to, dream about making it to the Kohl Center? Is that something that when you put your head on the pillow, you think, hey, maybe this group has that capability of doing something like that, something very special for East?
I do. I think that if you don't believe it, you can't achieve it, because if you can't picture yourself there, why are you going to practice every day? You got to go to practice every day thinking that that's your final goal. You have a chance of getting there, and you want to get there. So, yes.
And in the point guard role, I think just knowing you analyze things a lot. You think about things a lot. What we can do better as a team, individualize all that stuff, and if you're a true competitor, you're always checking that stuff out and looking over your shoulder. For your team to get what they want out of it, finishing up in the top of the conference, making a deeper playoff run, what do you think has to either, whether it's got to be continued or be consistent, what has to kind of be the level of focus that's got to be really pertain to what the team has to do?
I mean, I think we just need to keep that focus and hard work and practice. I think sometimes we're getting into the end of the season here where it can be easy to think it's a long season and not take every day seriously. But I think our team has been pretty good at staying focused every single day and coming in knowing that that's our goal. So I think the most important thing is to stay focused, come into practice knowing that this day does matter, this day is a chance to get better, and this day will help us to achieve our goal.
Best rivalry in the Valley with you guys? Go ahead.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of rivalries I think we have. I think it changes on the year based on, how the competition is. I think this West is always a top rival. That's always going to be a good game no matter if it's at East or West. It's usually pretty close, and you know the guys over there, so you know who you're going against. You've grown up with them as well, so it's always a fun one, it's always a close one, and it's always a good coached one. Other than that, though, I mean, Marshfield was a really good game this year, and we look forward to both of those games this year. Obviously, it didn't come out in our outcome, but we enjoyed both of those. We look forward for Spash the second time. That will be a good game. Merrill's always a good rivalry. Everest is always a good rivalry.
So just say
there's a lot of them.
All the teams, yeah, too hard to pick.
Well, I think I'm going to let you ask the final question.
I got one more too before.
Okay.
Right, two left.
All right.
You're a senior. You've logged a lot of time. When I coached, I just remember I never liked looking forward to that last game and having to look a senior in the eye, because you just knew that stuff was done and it was really hard for them, and that as a coach you get to come back most of the time. As a graduating senior, you don't. When this basketball season or this track season or your senior year is done, what is it about either high school sports or basketball in particular, whatever you want to label, what are you going to miss the most?
Definitely just the group of guys and just getting to play the sport for, a good reason, having a reason to come in every day. I mean, I know it's a fun sport just to play no matter what, but just, getting to bond with the team and have a goal together, I think that's the most fun part of it, coming every day and knowing like, I can't do this by myself. We get to work together to achieve this, and that we need each other. So I think that's the part that I'm going to miss the most.
And for the final question, and I don't think we've said it. You obviously have a relationship with Isaac.
Oh, yeah.
What is that relationship?
Isaac's my nephew, so he's my sister's kid.
There you go. So I'm going to let you ask the final question.
All right, we asked this of every high school guest that comes on here, and obviously I think it's even better when you've been a 4-year starter, so that that gives you, I think, even an extra perspective of what you can tell somebody. somebody's coming into the program, you're leaving, one of the youthful, whether it's a freshman or a young kid, what's the best advice you think you can give them on how to make the most of their high school career?
I would say to just, take every day by what it is, Take every day as a chance to love the sport. Take every day as a chance to embrace the sport, because it really does give back to you, and it really does give you all you want. It's a fun sport. It's competitive. You get to make teammates and build friendships that you'll hold for a long time. So I think just coming in, taking every day, one day at a time, and enjoying it while it lasts.
Isaac Rozwadowski, senior for Wausau East High School. Lumberjacks 14-5, 6-3 in the Wisconsin Valley Conference. Thank you very much for coming on by.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're going to take a time out, come back with more Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
What's your idea of winter fun? If it's hitting the trails after a fresh snowfall and you're thinking new snowmobile, it's time to call CCU. That's Clover Belt Credit Union, the leader in financing fun. If you're thinking new four-wheel drive vehicle to get you to the downhill slopes or the cross-country trails, it's time to call CCU. That's Clover Belt Credit Union, the leader in financing fun. Quick, easy loan applications, friendly lenders, and great rates make CCU the lending leader in financing fun. If your idea of winter fun isn't in the snow, maybe hitting the highway in a new motorhome is the way to go. Just give CCU a call. Financing for motorhomes and winter getaways. When you think fun, think Clover Belt Credit Union. What are you waiting for? Life's too short and winter's too long. Call CCU for your great rate financing. Dial 715-842-5693 or apply online or from your smartphone. That's Clover Belt Credit Union. Local lenders lending local money, keeping our community strong.
For more than 60 years, Sun Printing has been Central Wisconsin's commercial printer of choice due to their commitment to quality, creative solutions, and dedicated service. Sun Printing's team offers you a wide spectrum of services, whether you need vehicle graphics, offset, digital, large format, graphic design, or mailing. They print everything under the sun. No project is too big or too small, so give Sun Printing a call at 845-4911 or visit them online at sunprinting.com.
Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. BullFallsRadio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. One of the things I've enjoyed this year more than past years is that most of our guests have been able to come in. And I think it does add to what we're able to talk about. I think there's a little disconnect when you're talking over the phone. And again, I thought we got a lot of good stuff from both our coach guest, Oliver Drake, and our student athlete, Isaac Rozwadowski.
Yeah, I don't know, that we always say it either off air or on the air sometimes. That's our favorite part of the show, when they can come in, paint the picture. You get to have the conversation like it's just three people sitting around the table talking. And I think it's just great insight for what the special value that I hope high school basketball holds in this area, or high school sports holds in this area. So I think it's neat to hear their insights and what they think about it.
Let's talk hockey briefly here before we look ahead on basketball. But playoffs start next Tuesday. So we're in the final week of the regular season for high school hockey. The Wisconsin Valley Conference finished off their season last night. Had a good one here on Bull Falls Radio. Wausau West beat Everest 5-4 in overtime. Brody Brimacombe had a pair of goals, including the game winner in the extra session. Stevens Point had another long road trip. They went to Brookfield, played to a 3-3 tie. Marshfield edged East Merrill United by a score of 2-1. So Spash won the conference at 10-0. Wausau West finished second at 8-2, and Rapids was third in the conference as well, followed by DC Everest. There's still some regular season games coming up. Wausau West has a couple of non-conference games trying to roll into shape before the start of the playoffs. They take on Neenah Hortonville Menasha, always a very good program, tomorrow night at Marathon Park. Also tomorrow night, a good non-conference game for Stevens Point. They play host to Fond du Lac. And then Saturday, Wausau West takes on a team from Minnesota. La Crescent Hoka will be at Marathon Park Saturday. We'll have the game Saturday, 4 o'clock here on Bull Falls Radio. And then the playoffs begin. And looking at the Division I playoff bracket, Wausau West will play in a first-round game next Tuesday. hosting East Merrill United. So number 11 seeded Blue Jacks, number 6 seeded Warriors. Next Tuesday, 7 o'clock, Marathon Park Ice Arena. And we will have that game live right here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. The winner of that game will go on to play at number 3 seeded Hudson a week from Thursday night. So hopefully, again, I got to take my biased hat off here for this show, but I'm hoping to go to Hudson a week from Thursday
Fair
night.
enough.
Number 7 seeded Rapids takes on number 10 Marshfield in a all-Valley matchup next Tuesday. The winner then travels to another Valley team, Stevens Point, in the second round next Thursday. And DC Everest, number 9 seed, been playing good hockey. They have won 7 of their last 10 games. They travel to Eau Claire next Tuesday, take on number 8 seeded Eau Claire North. A victory for the Evergreens would send them to number 1 seeded Chippewa Falls a week from Thursday. So that's the D1 bracket. Division 2 teams from the Great Northern Conference. And last night, it was the Great Northern Conference semifinals. And Mosinee lost at Tomahawk 5-2. So Tomahawk advances to the championship round of the GNC, taking on Lakeland, who defeated Wapaka 4-3. So Saturday, the championship round, Tomahawk and Lakeland. The third place game in the GNC, Mosinee against Wapaka. The fifth place game, Rhinelander against Antigo. And the seventh place game, Pines against Medford. And the Great Northern Conference tournament basically is a preview of the sectional number 2 in Division 2, because basically all these teams, almost all these teams, are in D2. Number 1 seed Tomahawk takes on number 8 seed Rhinelander. Number 5 seeded Antigo against number 4 seeded Wapaka. These games a week from Thursday. They don't play Tuesday. They play a week from Thursday. The bottom of the bracket, number 3 Mosinee, hosting number 6 Northern Pines. And number 7 Pacelli, the one non-GNC team in this bracket, taking on number 2 Lakeland. Central Wisconsin Storm, hope you were with us Saturday. Were you with us Saturday?
I turned it on. I try to understand a lot. I can only go so long on hockey, so I'm in and out. I'm not perfect.
It
But
was
I
1
with you for a
versus
little.
2. 1
Yeah,
versus 2.
I listened to some of it.
Number 1 Superior, number 2 Central Wisconsin Storm. And the Storm went up to Superior. I went up to Superior. It was a 1-1 game, a very exciting hockey game. Gabby Heiser had the goal for Central Wisconsin. Ilsa Brunner, very impressive young goaltender, plays behind Claire Kalmus, but had the start and had 31 saves in that game. The Storm will now have games on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday to finish off the regular season. They take on Chippewa Falls Menominee Thursday. Friday, the Bay Area Ice Bears, number 3 ranked team in the state, take on the number 2 ranked team, Storm. And we'll have the game Friday night between number 3 and number 2 here on Bull Falls Radio. It's also a big pink night, pink game, and a big benefit coming up at Greenheck. But we'll be on the air from Greenheck 6:50 on Friday. And then Saturday, the Storm will wrap up their season against the Lakeshore Lightning. The Storm are the number 2 seed in the bracket. They will be right into a sectional semifinal. Get a bye. They will not have a playoff game until Tuesday, February 20th at Marathon Park against the winner of number 3 seeded Hayward, number 6 seeded Medford. And of course, Hayward last year defeated the Storm in the sectional semifinal. And an interesting note, head coach Jana Wimmer decided to play this game at Marathon Park. Normally, they play the playoff games at Greenheck. They played the playoff game at Greenheck a year ago. Taking advantage, said, I want to play at Marathon Park. So a week from this coming Tuesday, Storm against either Hayward or Medford, likely Hayward. Hayward, number 5 ranked team in the state. Storm, number 2, number 1 Superior, the number 1 seed in the bracket. They will take on either the Wisconsin Valley Union or Northern Pines in the sectional semifinals. So again, a lot of fun high school hockey playoffs next week, and wanted to set things up
Yeah, no, that's a good summary of what's going on. I got a question quick. Is it ever hard for some of these teams, like with the Storm ending in 3 games in a row, a Thursday, Friday? Was it Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
Yep.
You say? Is that hard to do for a hockey team?
Well,
so many games in a row?
Yeah, because the Friday game was not scheduled. That's a makeup of a
Okay,
postponement. This was not the plan, but that was a significant game. Wanted to play Bay Area again, so made sure they filled it in. And the good news is for Central Wisconsin, they don't play next week. So
Get some time off.
Yep, they get all next week off. So, and that I thought was a bit of an issue last year. They had a whole week between the end of the regular season because there's only 6 teams, and unfortunately, there's only about 26, 27 schools or teams participating in girls hockey in the playoffs. So, being a top seed, 1 or 2, they get. I asked, do you get a regional championship bracket for this?
That's what I was thinking about when you
I don't
announced
know.
that.
I don't know. So,
And how do they decide where to play? Whether it's a West game versus or Marathon Park versus the Greenheck Field?
well, I mean, being one of the home rinks, the coach I think wanted the smaller rink because Greenheck is an Olympic size.
Right.
It's a big sheet of ice. Apparently, feels like her team is better off playing on a normal sized rink like at Marathon Park. So that's where we stand. We're going to come back in 1 minute, look ahead in boys and girls basketball. That's straight ahead here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
So, how are the kids?
Well, Emily made the honor roll.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, we're really proud of her. Tyler, on the other hand, though.
What's going on?
He's been moody lately, just feeling down and not like himself.
Oh, we've been there. Nick was struggling last spring. He was so anxious and stressed.
Really? What helped?
Well, he joined the soccer team. And ever since, he's been a lot happier. He has more energy, he's less stressed, and he's definitely in a better mood at home. It's made a huge difference.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad he's getting out of the house, he's getting some exercise, and he's off his phone for once. It's been good for his mental health.
Sounds like it's been good for your mental health, too.
Participating in Wisconsin high school sports improves students' physical and mental health. Encourage your son or daughter to get involved. This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
Big high school sports show, Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. BullFallsRadio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO. Along with Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. We have a lot to talk about because we didn't get through everything in terms of boys and girls basketball. We got about 20 minutes, so we got plenty of time here. Let's start with the girls. Let's kind of touch on those because since we do have a little bit of time, we didn't get to the CWC East. I want to kind of talk about because of Wittenberg, Burnhamwood. Whitburn, 10-2 in the conference, 19-2 overall. Bondwell, 12-0 in the conference, 20-2 overall. Whitburn last week, I want to mention last Thursday, again, one of the great performances this week, Milena Granquist for Wittenberg. They beat Manawa 62-34. Granquist had 27 points, 19 boards. Then last night, Whitburn beat Menominee Indian and 66-47. And Rory Salveson had 39 points in that game. So
who's typically their leading scorer.
Right, but still, that's well beyond anything we've talked about this year. So great performances for Whitburn. Again, only 2 losses came to Bondwell, 19-2 on the season. And again, very curious to see this team as it develops in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I think they've got obviously qualities of leadership. You got enough of a balanced attack, but yet kids you can rely on. You don't get that when people don't understand their roles and play as a team to become 19-2, 10-2 overall, and maybe Bondwell is their only hiccup. And
the thing real quickly about the second game, because again, that was you weren't here, so we could really talk about it. I think the fact that they showed that they could go out there, take a double-digit lead at halftime on the road, and even if with the loss, I think again a team like that. They're going to be in a situation like that in the playoffs. It's never an easy bracket for Whitburn. They always have to play some really good teams early on. I think the fact that they were able to come out there and put their foot on the accelerator, but then learn as well that you have to play 2 complete halves.
Well, and when in my coaching career, I was never in that problem where you're undefeated the whole season. But I think sometimes it's nice to have, like you said, something you can learn from, a little bump in the road, whether it just makes you stronger. Like, again, alluding to what Coach Drake said, facing that adversity, fighting through things. Isaac shared moments of that. I think that makes and builds the character of your team, because it's going to be that fight. And that's what the end of the season is, whether you're trying to come strong down the conference season or conference schedule, or whether you're trying to make it as far as you can in the post. That there's this resiliency that makes these teams accomplish what they can accomplish. And who does it with a little more grit and determination is usually the team that pulls that out. And it's not always necessarily the most talented team. So I think for the Wittenberg girls, 19-1 is an excellent record, 10-2 overall. I know it's only going to give you a second-place finish, but it's still a nice spot to be in. And, they got the scoring punch to boot behind the team play, and I think that's a dangerous combination going into the playoffs.
Let's look ahead, and I think perhaps on the girls' side, the biggest game will be in the Valley. Friday night, Stevens Point and Marshfield round 2, game that went right down to the wire in Stevens Point, where Spash was able to just barely beat the Marshfield Tigers. Spash 10-0 in the conference, Marshfield 9-1. This time in Marshfield, it has everything going for it to be a great game.
Right, and if you just look at the the mirror images, there's one loss defines the two teams a little differently in conference. Overall, Spash has one more win and one less loss than Marshfield does. They've been coming off wins where they're by significant amount of double digits to the teams they've played ahead of these games. It's always because the closeness of the proximity of those cities been kind of a rivalry game that from what I've seen over the years, and I think just the consistency that they played some good non-conference opponents. They've both done well within this conference, and I think it has what it's going to be on Friday. I got to imagine it's going to be another tight one.
Yeah. And I think Stevens Point has a good non-conference game to keep an eye on next Tuesday. Eau Claire Memorial. Again, those are one of those sectional games where they're vital. And again, a good non-conference opponent for Stevens Point. When you look at the GNC, a big one on Friday, Lakeland at Rhinelander. Lakeland has been by far the team in the GNC. And again, I think it would take Rhinelander playing out of their mind and Lakeland having a tough shooting night. But still, that should be a fun one in the Northwoods.
If you're a true competitor, you're always up for the challenge. I haven't seen what was her when you listed Wimette's lowest point total. Was that the lowest 22 or was
no?
It one
she had a single digit game when they played in one of their losses.
Okay,
one of those tough non-conference games.
It's not. That's the only one though that we can we can talk about. So it's been it's a very good challenge to keep her in check, is what I'm saying. Next to impossible sometimes.
She's so tall.
But yeah, but for Rhinelander, you're going to that game with the coaches. There's nothing to lose. If you win, it's great. If you lost, you weren't supposed to win. So I think there's more pressure on Lakeland to own that now with that one loss differential in that column for both teams. So I think Rhinelanders should play free and clear and have fun in that challenge and go build themselves stronger as they continue down the rest of the stretch. Just a couple games they got left.
And another aspect of this coming week for Lakeland is when we talked to Melissa Womette, the head coach, a few weeks back, talked about some of these non-conference games. They're coming up on Saturday. They're at Xavier, and then on Tuesday they're at Rice Lake. These are two really good non-conference auditions for the upcoming postseason playoffs when they will likely face a team like Notre Dame Academy.
And I didn't write it down, and I'm hoping I remember seeing it right, but I thought when I looked at Xavier's and Rice Lace's record that they were up 15, 16 wins each. Yeah. It's not going to be somebody they're going to come in and be able to take over. It's going to be a formidable opponent. So I think good games down the stretch to finish out your season to try to be as strong as you can rolling into those playoffs.
Marywood South, again, they have crossovers basically on Thursday and Friday. I guess in terms of the crossovers, the most intriguing one is Auburndale and Athens. Obviously, Athens showed that they could compete with Assumption. Can they beat Auburndale in Athens? That'll be a good one. And also, I think the Assumption non-conference games, as you mentioned, they have Monday, back-to-back yet. They go all the way to Aquinas on Monday, and then they host Pacelli on Tuesday.
Yeah, getting a taste for the old CWCC there. I think those are good games to have. Aquinas has been strong over the last couple of years. Again, I just saw Pacelli on the news last night, and we hit a last-second shot to defeat Pittsville in their conference. I think it was for the conference championship, but I'm not 100% on that. And I think, it's kind of a nice repertoire to finish off the season with some strong non-conference opponents. For Athens, another chance to prove themselves against the Marywood South, and for Auburndale, it counts as another conference game. So kind of to stay strong in that second place, which, Stratford's only one more loss behind. So they take that, they tie out, and you want to hold some of those spots on your own.
And I'll keep an eye on as well Wittenberg-Burnham at Amherst on Friday, because, Amherst is not what they've been at times, but they're still the third-place team in the CWC East. They're 7-5 in conference, 11-10 overall. Game being played at Amherst. Whitburn has had their issues in that gym over the years. So, again, I think it's a good late-season test to go into a hostile environment where Amherst is going to want to knock off one of the top teams in their conference.
And for Wittenberg to go play consistent, because you don't want to go in there and dip on one and make some silly mistakes. And I watched Amherst play, and I think, did you have the call
Newman.
on that game?
Yeah,
against Newman. They had some physicality. They had some girls that could put the ball in the basket, so I don't think necessarily a pushover, but for Wittenberg, you're looking to come out and control that basketball game.
Let's turn to the boys for this coming week, starting with the Wisconsin Valley Conference. I really am looking forward to tomorrow night, 7 o'clock pregame right here on Bull Falls Radio with Wausau West and DC Everest. I think that, again, it's always a great rivalry game. West had not defeated Everest in about 5 years or 6 years before their win, and they really. And when I said the coach that wasn't your best night, you could see that it was not their best night. Right. West really did take it to them in the first meeting, but I think for West to build on what they did against Rapids on Friday, build on what they've been able to accomplish, and for Everest, who again I think is playing much better basketball, that it's a very interesting game.
Well, for West, you got laying back, so keeping that consistent where you're continuing to fill the lineup that you want to be the strongest at the end of the year, with putting out 87 points in that win over Rapids. I think for Coach Lemons, the staple of his teams have always been that gritty physical play on the defensive side to control the game. I'm interested to see if you match that with the consistency on the offensive side and get that output. That could become a dangerous team at that point. And for Everest, I just, they're just a team that I think, like Coach Drake said, they're building. They're young. They're getting it all together, and you see the best parts about them still coming, and that's a neat thing late in the season where our best is yet to come, and it's tottering in that right direction that it should be. So I think that's going to have the making of a fun game. Plus, you got the rivalry, the proximity of the schools, and as I mentioned before, teams looking to do the damage they did the first time and keep that consistent, or looking to build off a loss that you took that you weren't happy about the time.
And two great games on Tuesday. Stevens Point at Marshfield, obviously everything on the line. Spash, who lost at home to Marshfield the first time around, now has to go into the Marshfield Fieldhouse in order, and again, it's part of that massive doubleheader with the girls. And Tuesday night as well, Wausau West and Wausau East. Warriors lost by 38 points the first time. Again, Griffin Lang was not there. They want to come back and be much better against that crosstown rival.
Yeah, going to the Spash Marshfield first. And this time I wonder how hungry, because Marshfield hasn't experienced this since the Kimberly lost back in like the first 3 or 4 games of the season where they got beat up by Kimberly. Coming off an overtime loss to Eau Claire North, they'll get the Eau Claire Memorial game in there between a little bit, but I think they're going to come hungry out in that game to hold and own that spot. I mean, at the end of the day, when you could say you're a conference champion, it's great. But if you don't have to share it, no team wants to share that if they don't have to. You want it outright, and you want to own that on your own. For East-West, always a rivalry game. These kids grow up playing against each other. They see each other at the Y, wherever. So even when, the talent pools are separate or one team is playing better than the other, they still come and throw everything they can, being in the same district on the court to try to win out. So I think that's going to, be a fun environment, as it always is when those two teams match up.
Great Northern Conference, Lakeland and Rhinelander. I mean, that's always a battle, and they're both just trying to chase down Mosinee, Medford in there as well. And I think the non-conference game that Mosinee has against Xavier on Tuesday is also one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and Coach Lindsay, when he was in here, was talking about that game. He mentioned that that's going to be a good one for us to have. So, because if you look at their schedule right now, they're in the part of their schedule where they're gonna, they just beat Pines. They got Tomahawk, who they're gonna handle. So I think Xavier's going to be a good game to keep those kids fresh. For Rhinelander, another spot. Overall record 11-9. So you take some in the non-conference schedule, but I think they're sitting in a really good spot to own that second place and doing just enough in these games to, whether it's a loss, they're staying competitive, and if it's a win, they're pulling it out the way they should. I just think that sleeper is Medford there. They're not record-wise. They don't seem to be exactly what they're at, but they've got offensive firepower in the. Robbie. I always can't remember if the H is silent.
I don't know either.
I think it's Robbie too. But anyways, either way, the scoring punch from him, and it's one loss here.
And another game that's Medford and La Crosse Central. That's been a sectional game in the last few years.
Over the years, yeah. So I think it again, just some good games coming down the stretch that these teams have, I think, planned well and have well, and not only on the top of how they build their non-conference into their conference schedule.
Marywood South, again, a lot of crossover games. When you look at the crossovers, I don't see any issues for the South.
I'm just checking. No, Marathon's going to beat Phillips. Auburndale will beat Athens. What do you got? Edgar, Shawamigan for the first one. I think some of those other there's some more interesting non-conference games and a couple of those things, like when Edgar plays Lakeland. And I'd get to touch on Edgar. They're 15-4 overall, 9-3 sitting in the conference. They've got, Coach Huss did a great job, decide to move into a different career, and you've had two guys that have been invested in Edgar, whether they're alumni or they've done some coaching there for a while, and co-head coaches, and they've just looking at it on paper, done a nice job. They came off a win versus Crandon. They beat Phillips, should win at Shawamigan. I think they can take Lakeland based on what I've seen out of it, and just consistency. And I ran into one of the coaches, and the biggest thing he talked about is making basketball fun again, because that was one of the big things he heard from some of the kids is it's such a long season. We need to have some fun along the way and not look at this as a chore or a job. And to their credit, 15-4 and 9-3 in a good conference where you're probably going to take a loss to Marathon, and Auburndale's not going to be that easy. So no games that really stand out. Stratford's got the tough one where they got to go to Rib Lake on Friday. Eventually here to try to get that W.
Yeah, that would definitely be the one game to keep an eye on for those crossovers.
And looking just to see, Newman beat Tri-County the other night, and looking to see, they're going to play Prentice on Friday and jump to Pacelli on Tuesday, just to kind of see where they stand after the war. Not how Newman handled Pacelli over in the sectional, was semi or sectional semi.
Yep, that's exactly right. And any other games, either North or the CWC East, jump out? Anything you want to mention before we look into your notebook of interesting topics?
No, I mean, I guess you see where some teams stand in and out of conference. Northern Lutheran, lost to Prentice by a larger margin on Monday, and then they're back into the conference with stuff. Wittenberg will get a shot at Pacelli, and they're kind of sitting in the medium range to go see how they play there. But nothing else that really stands out for me.
We got a few minutes here. Let me look here. It's we got about 3 minutes here to talk. We haven't had a chance to really delve into your interesting topic file here. Anything you want to kind of mention before we wrap things up?
Well, we did quarters versus halves, right?
Yes, we did.
We've done I'm trying to think of the other one. Odd number versus even numbers in the conference.
Yeah. We did that.
I don't know.
I brought up the private versus public thing.
Yeah. Well, I'd like your opinion though on when does it? You mentioned earlier in the show the scheduling.
Yeah.
How do you walk the line on that? Because you want to challenge. If your team is ready to go, you want to challenge your team to get them ready for the playoffs.
But
and sometimes
there has to be a happy medium. That's what I'm saying. It's like, I think sometimes where every one of these games, I mean, but then again, I can have two good examples here where maybe it's working, because with Rhinelander, they're still right there in the conference. It has not appeared to hurt them in a significant way in terms of confidence. They're still doing what they need to do. And with West Hockey as well. They've had a bit of a rougher go in their non-conference games this season. They faced a lot of really good teams, but I think in the end, it has not hurt them. 8-2 in the conference as well. So I guess maybe again, it's working.
I think you definitely have to set up a schedule that mimics or rivals your conference schedule. If you think you can handle it, you have to put teams out there that are going to give you. I think the biggest thing is different styles of play, whether it's fast, slow, set up, push the ball, whatever it is that you're getting challenged. Because I think the more diverse styles of play your team can play, the more defenses they can have thrown at them.
And also, I think it's important if you are in a bracket to face these teams in a non-conference form, because you have an opportunity then to really make a statement in terms of seeding as well.
Right. And I think it's a balance too between those teams you need to see that are in your non-conference. You have to sprinkle some of those in that you will play in the playoffs, or common opponents, so you have something to distinguish yourself from in terms of winning that. But I used to, when we'd schedule tough and we knew we could take it, we would try to make a schedule on that non-conference schedule that would really, we knew what we were going to get in our conference, and we wanted to rivalry that where we're playing like that every night. There is not a night off. There is no cupcake. There is no, I think we can win it. It's like, I hope we can win it, because we're going to have to play hard. We're going to have to fight. And I think that makes you the toughest in the end.
Thanks to our engineer, Ian Welsh, for helping us out here tonight. Thanks to our guests, Oliver Drake of DC Everest and Isaac Roswadowski of Wausau East. We'll be back next week.
Awesome. It's always fun.
Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
WXCO 1230 AM, W255DN Wausau, streaming at bullfallsradio.com.